Hey, this will be the first tutorial, and don't think by any means that I think that I'm some kind of an expert. I can only show you what I've learned and what I do myself. There are so many different ways to go about getting your images to look like you want them. First of all, I take all of my photos in RAW instead of JPEG. If you look right here, if you see .cr2 as the extension on the end of your file name, that's a RAW image, and they have a lot more digital data than a JPEG. So you don't mess them up, and you can always go back to the original. It's like having a negative and going back and being able to reset your camera settings and everything all from the beginning in case you've messed up. Anyway, with this pretty image of Hannah, who belongs to Yolanda, who's from 919 Seniors in North Carolina, using this image of her, I really like it, but the shadows are so dark on her right side of her face. I was going to show you what I do when that happens. Most of the time, I'll come up here to the histogram. That's the little graph over here. And on the left are darks. On the right, they're lights. And you can see there are many more darks than there are lights. We want to have not really a hill, but more of a hill in the middle to have a good image. It greatly depends on what's in your photo. So I'm going to come to the histogram. I'm going to grab the shadows and drag them to the right. As I do that, you can watch, hang on, let me grab a different spot. You can watch the image, you see the shadows begin to get lighter. Now that's a little too light, so I'm going to go back some. And if you watch these red areas right here, that means those highlights are overexposed. When that happens, you're going to lose detail in your picture. So I'm going to come here to highlights on the sliders. I'm going to drag them to the left, which makes them not as bright. But now look at her shoulder. Oh no. Control Z and undo that. Let's approach that a different way. Let's go up here, bring the contrast all the way down, bring the shadows all the way up, the blacks all the way up. Let's look at it again. Okay, that looks terrible, but it's a good place to start when you have a real neutral image like that. Now you can bring the contrast up to about a third. It began here in the middle. I'm going to bring it up to about 1/3. Then I'm going to scroll down to the curves where it says tone curve. Excuse me. I'll bring the darks down, make them darker. Now that looks better. Let me hit the Y key and show you a before and an after. Yeah, that looks a whole lot better. Well, that's one way that I open up the shadows in my images as I'm editing them. I think I'll add a little bit more dark to it. Yeah, let's bring down the shadows a tiny bit, but not make it black. There we go. And now I have a good image. Oops, I see a little red on her sleeve. Let's go up here and let's get the highlights here. Bring them down a little. Yeah, now we didn't mess up the highlights on her pretty skin. Now we've got a perfect image to edit in Photoshop. So my next step would be to save it as a JPEG and export it to Photoshop. Thanks for listening.